Losing any sleep about a recession?
You always want to be concerned, you want to be prepared, but I'll tell you, for this legislative session, not really. I want to applaud the legislature, the good work that we did in these past sessions. It's almost unbelievable for me, Glenn. I mean, now this is my fifth or sixth time doing this. The first time, we had a $1 billion deficit. And our state was, still coming through the Great Recession. Today, we're in a completely different position. We've planned ahead, and a recession. We've been able to repeal a lot of regulations. We have not been able to repeal the laws of economics. A downturn will happen. It's inevitable, and it is unexpected when it does happen. But whenever that downturn does happen, it will be dramatically different from 2009. The fact that our economy is diversified, the fact that we've put $1 billion in the rainy day fund, that we've paid down debt, that our budget is balanced, that there's $1 billion surplus in the general fund, all will allow us to mitigate it in a much different way as we navigate through it. But it's not one of the predictions I'm going to have for this upcoming legislative session. I think we're going to see continued robust growth.
You've been on the job now 5 years. What's the biggest takeaway or surprise or just anything you'd like to share with the audience 5 years in?
I would say the persistence of the spending lobby is incredible to me. Here we are with a state that's been turned around. I took you through all the financial metrics that I could hold up against any other state in the nation, and yet folks out there still think that we need a tax increase, even though we are sitting on $1 billion surplus inside the general fund. So they're always going to be there. If you look at it this way, in the early 2000s, we were basically on a binge diet. We were an all-you-can-eat smorgasbord. I mean, spending was just out of control. Then the Great Recession came, and we had to go on a starvation diet. And here we are today on what I would say is a responsible, sustainable diet. Of course, we're going to add more to it, but we really don't want to be in one of these positions where we have reckless spending that people are accountable to after you leave office, and it puts the state in a crater or a crack. So we're headed in the right direction.
Governor, I think these next two questions, when I look at them, I didn't have these questions locked down. My wife may have switched some of these out because they sound like they came from her. We just ended a decade, and it's a big thing that we've entered a new decade. We're in the 2020s, and people are trying to figure out what do we call them. But how is Arizona viewed now? You do a lot with your colleagues across the country. How is Arizona viewed now as compared to a decade ago?
Well, I think where we are today, our reputation has never been better. Our relationship with Mexico has never been stronger. And reputation matters. I mean, 30 years ago, what was Arizona State University known for? It was the #1 party school in the country. Today,
I was there.
Me too. Today, it's the #1 most innovative university in the nation. If you look at Arizona, when the recession did come, and we were so dependent on home building and construction, it was seen as an economic basket case. Today, we're seen as a jobs juggernaut, and we're locking down companies and cutting ribbons and making announcements like never before. So that reputation and brand of the state really matters.
You just went to, and this is, my wife's from Israel, Tali, who's putting this on Facebook Live. You just went to Israel and you visited the brand new trade office. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Sure. We had a great trip to Israel over the Christmas holidays. I was able to go to our new trade office, meet with our new leader there. David's doing a terrific job. If you remember, the book Startup Nation was a model that I brought to Arizona in terms of the startup state. And we really do have some things in common with Israel, from the water challenges, border security, some of the things that they're doing with technology. So we had a great trip. It was a great visit, not only with the Arizona Commerce Authority presence there and discussing what's possible for Arizona and how we can take some of the good things happening in cyber and technology and apply them to Arizona and state government. We also met with Ambassador David Friedman, and we also made it a family vacation as well, without any phones. It can be done. It was really great, and you know how beautiful it is, and Jerusalem, and the history, and the archaeology, and everything about it. So it was a great trip. It's great to be home, and I'm excited for what's possible in this next session.
Well, you were the first sitting governor to visit the state of Israel about 4 years ago, and you pushed and signed the nation's model when it comes to anti-BDS legislation. So thank you for that, Governor. Are there more trade visits in your future?
Maybe. Maybe. I was just at a governor's conference in late November, and we were having a private lunch and going around the table, and everybody was talking about where they go on these trade missions, and most of the governors brought up, Tokyo or Taiwan, Beijing or Shanghai. Those are all nice places. I opened up ice cream stores in all those places. I said I go to California for my trade missions. And there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, you talk about our reputation as a growing state, and you probably saw that we're going to bring the manufacturing of White Claw to the state of Arizona. I knew that'd be an applause line. And, that was a very competitive negotiation. I mean, this brand, not only White Claw, but Mike's Hard Lemonade and the other things that they're doing, could basically go wherever they wanted in the country. And the fact that they chose Arizona, and they chose it on such quick timing, I think is a testament to our reputation as a great place to live and a great place to do business. And I would contrast that with what's happening in California with the higher taxes, the increasing regulation, the people that are leaving, and the dysfunction that's happening in state government. So to me, a trade mission is exactly that. It's a mission to benefit the state of Arizona and Arizona's economy. So where we have those opportunities, I'm going to take advantage.
Well, California feels like another country these days, so that counts. What role is higher ed playing in the country and in the state?
Well, I want to say the role higher ed is playing in the state is an outsized role. We are very fortunate. I think I saw President Bobby Robbins in the room, the new leader of the University of Arizona, who's doing a great job. Of course, we're all familiar with the work Michael Crow has done at ASU and Rita Chang at NAU. I think Larry Penley is leading the Regents and doing a fantastic job. We're doing new things like having the Regents Cup, which is going to be a focus on civics and student engagement at the state and national level. And I think our model, our campuses are really models for what a public university should be, and the real proof is in the graduates. 5 years ago, at a lunch like this, I'd have a lot of moms and dads coming up to me and saying, "We love living here, but our kids can't find a job in Arizona upon graduation." I haven't had anyone say that to me in 3 years. They're producing great graduates out of all three of our state's universities, and many of them, if they choose to, are being employed right here in the state of Arizona. They are major economic drivers for our state, and I'm thrilled they're here.
Great. And as a dad who's about ready to send his first daughter to college, I love that answer, and I agree 100% with it. Since this is the Legislative Forecast Luncheon, what do you see coming up in the upcoming session, Governor?
Well, I saw President Fan here and Speaker Bowers. I was able to touch base with Leader Charlene Fernandez, and I know David Bradley's here as well. I'm looking forward to a very productive session. I think we're going to have a terrific budget. I know that most folks, I would imagine, would like to have a brisker session than normal, and I'm on the same page if they'd like to do that. We do have work that needs to be done, and we want to give the appropriate time to conduct the people's business, but I don't think we have to spend more time than is necessary.
As we enter into the session, if we're talking about the next session, we've got to talk K through 12 education. Would love your thoughts.
Well, we're always going to talk K-12 education, and of course we're going to complete the teacher pay raise. The 20 by 2020 teacher pay raise will be completed in this next budget. And I think we can also talk about how we have some targeted spending where it's needed most. You know, we have such great examples in the state of Arizona of public schools, both district and charter, that are excelling. And we're doing this in all parts of our state, not just Maricopa and Pima, but our rural areas and low-income areas, and taking those best practices and finding the right way to structure the funds so that we can replicate that. You know, a lot of times people will say, there's a school over here and it's getting lousy results, let's get it more money. My mindset is more, hey, there's a school over here that's getting excellent results. Let's get them more money so that they can do more, so that they can, with school choice and open enrollment, we want to find a way where we're rewarding the principals and teachers that are doing the hard work and getting it done. And when the schools are struggling and they have a commitment to a turnaround, we want to get them those dollars. But we want to see some accountability with improvement in results and outcomes on math, reading, and science. And the budget's going to be much about that.
That's great to hear. We've got more liquidity in our education market than any other state. We're at a point now, and you've mentioned this a number of times, people vote with their feet, companies vote with their feet. We're probably at the most competitive point in terms of our tax system. We're the business community. We're always looking to make our tax environment more competitive. Would love to hear your thoughts about tax reform and tax cuts in the next session.
Well, I made a commitment 5 years ago that I was going to lower or simplify taxes every year I was in office, and I'm going to stay committed to that pledge. And I think people realize that we are in a competitive position as a state. Every day, we're competing against Nevada, who has zero income tax. We're competing against Texas and Florida, who have zero income tax. Utah is a wonderful place to live and do business. So I think of how do we have these tax reforms or improvements or simplifications as to how do they affect the state and the people. Now, as a business person, I know our businesses are doing very well. And I want them to continue to do well. That's really the only thing I ask them to do is have wild success and continue to grow and employ people because the tax base naturally grows. But I look to tax reform to the real people in the state of Arizona. It's why I like to focus or see where the opportunities are on income tax. This is how you affect real people in a state. And stay tuned to State of the State to see how we're going to do that.
We've got a good sneak peek there. I heard in the halls, you know, while we're focused on policy in the legislative session, there are some people here who also think about elections and politics. And redistricting is on people's mind, not just for the likely congressional seat we'll get, while California will probably lose one and other states that are doing the wrong things will lose, but it also affects our state lines. We just love any thoughts on redistricting that you might have.
Well, I think there's a time for that discussion, and it's probably post-session. I mean, that's something that's going to set up the political alignment for the state. It's a process that you want to be fair and transparent, and I'm confident that it will be, but it will take place post-legislative session.
I know there's 3 full years left, but it's not too soon, given the re-election and 5 years in, to think about legacy. What do you believe your legacy will be, Governor?
Listen, Glenn, I've got 3 sessions remaining. I've got 1,085 days remaining in office on the day I give the State of the State. We can have the legacy discussion several years from now. We're in such a different spot than we were 5 years ago. And now we have momentum. We want to pour the gas on. If you think these first 5 years have been transformative to our state, you should have the same expectation for what happens in these next 3 years. And that's what we're going to kick off on Monday afternoon.
Well, I'm glad we don't pay by the hour at the chamber. One issue, it's not exactly a state issue, but I believe you've done more than any other governor to push for laws such as licensing reform, things like that, that modernize our laws to take into account the modern economy. Something that's gotten a lot of attention on the city level are some of the fees at Sky Harbor for ride-sharing, Uber-type services. Would just love any thoughts you have on.
Well, I think what they've done with Uber and Lyft is a bad idea. I mean, we're one of the fastest growing states in the nation. Sky Harbor may be a city property, but it is a Arizona state asset. I mean, this is the number one inbound port in the state. And can you imagine if, depending on the legal ruling, citizens were planning a trip or people were coming to Arizona and planning on the convenience of a Uber or Lyft to get to their destination and it wasn't available? I think that would be hurtful to our reputation. Now, I've come to know and respect Mayor Kate Gallego. I think there's a good chance that this ruling could be overturned by the courts. Certainly possible, and wouldn't surprise me at all if she had a plan B in her back pocket, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Governor, we're about at the end of our time here, but you're the head honcho of the state. Any concluding words you'd like to leave the 1,200 people here with today? Well,
I do want to say thanks so much for your help and support for the state of Arizona and the energy that you've given in terms of the turnaround and the momentum for the future that we have. I'm very excited about it. Tune in Monday to hear what this 2020 legislative session is going to look like. Thanks a bunch, Glenn.
Thank you, Governor Ducey.